Please join me in welcoming Becky Andrews.
We are happy to be here with all of you. And just going to kind of share some of my experiences of my journey of losing my eyesight. I have retinitis pigmentosa. And so I hope that you can relate. I think that we share some things in common, so I hope that you can relate to some of what I share, and that after you have we have an opportunity to meet out there too. So got a little wanderer, maybe. When several years ago, I was asked to do a presentation on coping with vision loss. And I had several things laid out, all the things that had helped me, all the different tools, was geared up to give this presentation. And not too far into it, someone raised their hand in the back, a woman, and said, "I don't want to cope, I want to thrive." And it took me by surprise for a minute, because I had my speech all laid out, but I made a mental note of the difference of those two words. And I wanted to talk about how we thrive in life. You know, when you think of cope, we have times when we're coping, when we're getting by, when we're doing the best we can. And if you've read my book, there's times where I felt like I was coping. I was learning how to live a joyful life with vision loss. But when we get to that space of thriving, it's such a much more empowering experience. It's where we're engaged and enjoying life and feeling like we're giving back and we're connected. So I want to share some of the tools that I feel like have helped me thrive in life, and I hope that they might help you as well. Sometimes I know I wondered if that was possible with vision loss, when I had to quit driving or do some of those things that I thought were pretty essential. I wondered if I could thrive, and I learned that certainly we can thrive. We returned home on Monday from an incredible trip to Israel and Jordan, and while we were there, kind of had this talk in the back of my mind. And so one of the experiences we had really resonated with me that I want to share. I didn't have my guide dog. Georgie was at Guide Dogs for the Blind, being well taken care of. So I was cane in hand with my husband on an adventure. And one of my bucket list items was to ride a camel. And I didn't know much about that. And so when I got on the camel, my husband mentioned to him, now she's blind, you know, because I thought, I don't know do you steer a camel? I wasn't quite sure how I was to manage this camel. And they very unfazed said, okay, you know, and I quickly learned that wasn't a big deal. You didn't need to be able to see to ride a camel. But I quickly became intrigued with this remarkable animal that was trudging through this hot, rugged terrain. And I realized, just like each of us have a lot of we have what we need. We have the capabilities to thrive, that a camel has just what it needs to thrive in the rugged environment. Without going into all the details, their large feet help them be able to navigate even when it's on an angle. There was a point where we were walking a little bit on an angle, and I'm visualizing me tipping over with this on this camel, and I was reassured that no, they have a wide base, so they can manage that. Their eyelashes, which, you know, are beautiful, long, curly, also help them keep out the dust. Their cute, smiley face, you know, has a purpose to it. Their bone on their forehead serves like a sun visor. So they have all these attributes that help them thrive in this pretty rugged, intense terrain. They can go a long time without water, without food. So I wanted to kind of compare that again to we also can thrive. We also can do well under difficult circumstances. So I love the word resilient. And you can see by the name of our business, resilience. And we've all had to experiences in our lives where, like it or not, we've had to be resilient. And that's the capacity we have, that we get stretched. And I've got my tether up here as an example, where we get pulled and we get stretched. We get a lot put on us, a lot of losses, a lot of experiences. And we become transformed by those. We have the opportunity to learn and grow from those experiences. So there's a lot of different factors that help us be resilient. And I'm just going to kind of go through those and tell some experiences that came to my mind in my journey. And I think you'll probably have some that you can relate to. So one of the first ones is being able to articulate our feelings, having some way that we get to express how we're feeling. As we know, when we experience a loss, whether it's vision loss or so many life changes that we experience, we have a lot of emotions that go with that. We have times of feeling sadness, of feeling what if, anger, discouragement, even loneliness, and kind of wondering, how am I going to do this? And having a place that we can feel support and feel connected and feel like we can express ourselves is pretty important as we're bouncing back. I tell clients, you know, we have to let out those emotions so that we have space to feel the pain. We can't just keep them stuck in there. So having a place to process our feelings. I love quotes. One of my favorite ones that goes along with this part is from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And she says, "The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of their depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, genuineness, and a deep loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen." The next piece in being resilient is being proactive and open to growth. And certainly, all of you being here today is such a proactive decision that exhibit hall, all the different resources that we have, helps us be proactive and to know what our options are. I had an experience that's funny now, as most of our experiences are. I'm going to snag. Hopefully I'm not taking somebody else's water. In this situation, I'm going to tell a little experience that nudged me into being proactive. I was a young mom. My vision was, as probably many of you know, with retinitis pigmentosa, your vision starts closing in more, getting fuzzy. So you adapt, as we do. We adapt and get used to it. This seems kind of what I can see, it's okay. And I had turned in my license, but yet was still going, gosh, I can kind of see. Maybe I guess I can't drive, but it feels like I can kind of see. And walked over to a friend's house and was coming back and was kind of looking down the sidewalk, watching to see if my kids were coming home from school yet. And I walked smack into a stop sign and was knocked down. And as you know, when something like that happens, at first it's like, who saw? Did anybody see me? What did I just do? And then I realized I was bleeding, and that I had just walked into a stop sign. So the next day, I made that phone call to the Blind Center, like I'm sure many of you have done, and began that journey of being proactive, of learning what my options were, what tools could help me. I literally had to stop. I was stopped and reminded that I needed to do things a little differently. I couldn't clutch on to the way I was doing things. I needed to learn the tools that were out there. And so we thrive by being open to make those changes. My latest journey that I'm learning Braille, and I left class the other day, and I said, "This feels like a marathon." I feel like I am working so hard to read this. It felt like a marathon, but I also want to be able to read my notes more effectively, so I know that it's part of that journey and part of being, open to growth and that change. Another key part of thriving is being around people that believe in us. Those healthy, reciprocal relationships. I've certainly been blessed with a lot of those people in my life. 3 of them are sitting on the front row here. My husband is certainly, every step of the way, yeah, you got this. What do I need to do to help and support you? And I think that's so important. We need to be able to give, and we need to be able to receive. And one example that comes to mind for me is when I started running. And this is kind of a funny little note, but it's part of the journey. I started running the summer I broke both my arms. And you can see you can't do a whole lot if both your arms are broken. But my legs were good. My legs were healthy. My body was healthy. And so we created a tether. And I started running. And it kind of became this new world. This new door was opened up. And so I needed to find some friends that were open to being my guide. So Steve and I were running along one day, and a friend from the neighborhood started running with us, and we came back, and Steve said, "I think you could keep up with her." And so, we asked, and sure enough, she's become one of my guides for several years. But there's a couple important things about Brenda that fit in with this part. Brenda was the one that, as we're running along, she said to me, "I think you could run a marathon." And my response was, "Really? A marathon? How do you do that?" And she was there saying, "I'll get us a training plan. I've done that. I'll show you how. It's just a step at a time we can do this." And then a little bit later, she says, I've looked it up, and I've been studying how to be a guide. I think we could run Boston." And again, "Really? There's no way. I'm just," and she's like, "No, really, we could do that." And so we ran Boston, and And it was pretty incredible to be at that starting line with her and have someone that so believed in me. And I think that's so important for each of us as we thrive, to have people around us that say, you know, you got this. We might need to get a little creative. I might need to do a little bit of research. She kind of studied on how she could be a good guide, and when it gets really crowded, and you know, we fell a few times, but we realized that we could do it. And it was thanks to her, you know, believing in me that was a possibility. Another key part of thriving is to celebrate who you are, to be authentic. I don't know if any of you have experienced that journey of starting to use a cane. For me, that was an adjustment to pull that out. And even though I knew it was going to help me and help me be safe, it was a little bit of an adjustment. And I remember being at the basement of Crossroads Mall in Salt Lake, having a heart-to-heart with my orientation and mobility instructor, and saying, I just don't know. I don't know if I can do this. And she said, she was very matter-of-fact. She said, well, is it helpful? Well, yeah, I haven't bumped into as many things. It's helpful. Well, do you have support from your family? Oh, yeah, they are thrilled. They are so happy that I'm using a cane. And then she says, well, I think you need to be true to who you are. And that stuck with me. Even though I still took some time to navigate using that cane, I realized that was just a tool that I needed to use that was going to help me. And it helped me immensely. And then 20 years ago, I started the journey with a guide dog. That is an incredible, beautiful experience of thriving that I'm so grateful for. I think that when we experience vision loss, we become very creative. That next step of generating alternatives, finding a way. How many times we've had to go, okay, plan A is not working. Where's plan B? Where's plan C? That mindset of being creative, of not giving up when plan A, or sometimes it's ride A, or doesn't work, to keep fighting for what you want, to keep working hard. My husband said, you could spend the whole time talking about your fight with your career, that tenacity, that grit to say, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to keep working on that, and I'm not going to let a no deter me. I'm going to find a way. I know that we love to do active things, and that is definitely finding a way, getting creative on, running with a tether. We were in Israel and we realized we didn't have the tether. So we had our name tags from the tour group. So Steve pulled that up and tied it up to his arm, and I hung on to that. I think sometimes we have to get pretty creative on finding a way to do what we want to do. One of the important ones I think that helps us thrive is that sense of humor. Isn't it nice when an experience becomes funny, when we can laugh about it? Our son's, I think it was his third grade teacher that said, fun isn't fun unless it's fun for everyone. And certainly there's a difference when we feel like we're feeling laughed at versus when we feel like that was kind of funny. I can appreciate that and enjoy that. They say when we can notice humor in a situation, that it helps us kind of become step away and be in an observant role. I was trying to think of a few recent funny experiences. A few weeks ago, we were at the grocery store shopping, and I was very busily putting things in the cart, and talking to this man. And a second or two later, Steve's like, "I'm over here. That's not." You're talking to a different man, and that's not our cart. And I was so glad that I could, kind of be embarrassed, kind of wither away, but be able to kind of find the humor in it and not take it too seriously. And I'm sure if we were in a smaller group, there could be some pretty funny experiences that we could share. And isn't it nice when we can kind of laugh about it and find and just kind of go, yeah, this happens at times. I laughed that for 2 weeks this group was kind of watching out for me, and we did some hiking, and one of the guides, he grabbed me and he was going to make sure I was safe. We get home, we're unpacking things. I walk into our door at home and got a black eye. So, and I told one of the guides, I said, well, most accidents happen in your own home, not realizing that I was going to play that out. Another important thing as we're thriving is to seek the gratitude, find the gratitude in our life. And that doesn't mean, I tell clients, our gratitude doesn't minimize our grief. It doesn't take away from our loss. They're different experiences that we carry, that we need to process our grief, we need to process our losses, but we also need to take time to just stop and think about the gratitude that we have in each day, the things that are going well, the things that are going right. Some days it's kind of pretty easy to go through the things that are hard and are not working right, but when we take a minute and, experience and notice what's going well. I know I picked up Georgie after not having her for 3 weeks and feel such a deep gratitude for walking to the elevator, find the elevator outside, and not having that for 3 weeks has been such a reminder about what a blessing a guide dog is and how much I love and appreciate her. The last kind of part of thriving is finding that meaning and purpose in our lives. What's the way that you just give back, that you feel like you get to make a difference in the world? We all do. We all matter. Even if we can't drive, whatever our vision loss is, there's ways that we can each make a big difference in the world. And when we find that, it lifts us, it boosts us, it keeps us going. I want to share just a few kind of personal experiences. I was actually a little quicker on my resilient traits today, so I just want to share a couple experiences where I've felt like I have really learned and grown through this process of losing my vision. certainly it is a journey, isn't it? One of the times was I was in a women's clothing store and walked in, and they told me that I needed to leave with my guide dog. And you know the drill. I don't need to explain all the different circumstances, but it was an opportunity to assert myself, to stand up and say that I have the right to be here, and to also go back and educate that store. To, after a little bit of time, to go back and educate that store and help them understand how they could help and what someone that's blind needs when they come in and shop. And so I think that advocating is kind of a role that we get placed in at different times in this journey. And I'm grateful for that experience. I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had to learn and grow. When I wrote my book, the woman that helped me write it had me go back to the porch where I was a young mom, feeling discouraged, wondering if I could do what I needed to do as a mom and professional. And I went back, and I felt like 20 years later, and I felt such compassion for that young mom that was doing her best to try and navigate. And I also realized what a bright future that she had, and I'm grateful that she looked up, she moved forward, and took that next step of pulling out the cane and telling her kids that they could go on an adventure on the bus. And it takes courage sometimes, doesn't it? Those steps, those challenges that we face take courage. And I think we thrive when we recognize that some days are not easy, but if we have that support around us that will help us, that we truly can look up and move forward and have an incredible life and celebrate the journey. So thank you for letting us be part of your conference today.